Thanks, Nick. As Nick said, I'm a sheep farmer. I'm also a father, obviously an amazing husband, but more importantly this afternoon, I'm a Nuffield Farming scholar, and I'm here to share some of my findings from my scholarship journey. If you've come here expecting some easy answers, I'm afraid I'm going to leave you a bit disappointed, but what I can promise you are some stories from an amazing adventure, meeting incredible farmers around the world, where I saw firsthand how they are adapting, innovating, and caring for the landscape in ways that's truly inspired me. My travels have taken me all over the world, from the valleys of Wales to the deserts of Patagonia, from the mountains of Italy and France to as far away as Japan and Borneo. But everywhere I went, I was met by farmers with a familiar expression that said, "You've come all this way to talk about sheep." But once we started talking, whether it was Wales or Wyoming, it became clear that our challenges were remarkably similar. Weather extremes, policy uncertainty, and the constant balancing act between making a living and looking after the land. This journey has reminded me that upland sheep farming may look small on the map, but it's part of a massive global story about resilience, heritage, and change. So, why finding the balance? Just like most parts of agriculture at the moment, upland sheep farming is under pressure from all directions. Markets fluctuate, input costs rise, and policies seem to change faster than the weather, and that's certainly saying something coming from a North Walian shepherd. At the same time, we've been asked to produce food, restore biodiversity, store carbon, welcome visitors, and probably save the planet at the same time. It's a tall order for some sheep on a windy hillside, but the truth is, if anybody can do it, it's us, the farmers, because we already think in systems. The land, the weather, the livestock, the people, it's all connected. When it came to production, the most successful, happy and content farmers I met weren't chasing maximum yields, they were aiming for the optimum. Rotational grazing came up time and time again, giving pastures time to rest, building soil health, and improving land performance. As one Chilean farmer told me, we move the sheep before the grass gets bored of them. And that line really stuck with me after a day I spent with these guys on the Chilean island of Tierra del Fuego. For context, a wild and seemingly lawless land that's twice the size of Wales, with only a few thousand people, but millions of sheep. I was in heaven. I spent the day with 4 Chilean shepherds, and I helped them move 23,000 ewes to summer pastures. And I can... We didn't share a language, and I could hardly walk the next day, but it was one of the best days of my life, second only to my wedding day, obviously. But these guys, these are the original rotational and regenerative grazers, long before us lot gave it a fancy name. And if you ever wondered what 23,000 ewes look like, well, it looks like that. And speaking of land management, here's a guy who really hates sheep, Mr. George Monbiot. So I challenged myself to meet him, to spend the morning with my nemesis. But do you know what? Even this guy could see that people like me had a huge part to play in the future of the uplands, as long as we had sheep systems that worked with nature and not against it. And this conversation really stuck with me, and it reminded me that real progress is made by talking and not shouting. And when you get people with very different views around the same table, you've often got more in common than you first thought. And across my travels, I've seen exactly that. Farmers, conservationists, and communities working together. In Patagonia, government agencies collaborate with farmers to manage grazing at sustainable levels, protecting fragile grasslands whilst maintaining business viability. And in Japan, the Satsuyama tradition, which blends farming and wildlife with hedgerows and ponds, benefiting both biodiversity and people, and it was amazing to see sheep in the mix. And here in the UK, the best environmental outcomes come from trust and collaboration, where farmers are part of the solution and not painted as the problem. Because conservation only truly works when it's done with farmers and not to them. It's impossible to talk about the future without mentioning climate change. Every farmer I spoke to had noticed a difference. Longer droughts, heavier rainfall, unpredictable seasons. So some are breeding hardier and more resilient sheep. Others are planting trees. Agroforestry, whether you like it or not, is gaining ground across the world. It provides shelter for livestock, carbon for the soil, and a bit of diversity for the income stream. And one Argentinian farmer told me his philosophy was simple. Farm like we're going to be here forever. Because we can't control the weather, but we can control our attitude. And attitude is the foundation of resilience. One thing I hadn't expected to discover on my travels was how deeply entwined farming and culture really is, not just in Wales, but globally. In Borneo, I met a tribal warrior from the Upland tribe. And in Brazil, the chief of the Terena community deep in the Amazon rainforest. Both these communities were under threat from modern-day farming practices, in their case, palm oil and deforestation. It was a real eye-opener, and I realized for them, just as it is for us, farming isn't only about food or income. It's about identity, belonging, and keeping the way of life alive. And that hit home when I thought about Wales. I don't just keep sheep because it's economic activity, it's part of who I am. Farming shapes our landscapes, communities, and even our language. Many farmers told me if we lose our farms, we lose our language. Wherever I went, the message was the same. Farmers aren't just producing food, they're keeping culture alive. It's pride, heritage, stubbornness, and love for the land all rolled into one. And it's reminded me that farming is as much about identity as it is food. And if we lose identity, we'll lose far more than just the sheep. If you think sheep farming is old-fashioned, well, you'll have to think again. In California, I saw flocks being used for fire grazing down tinder dry vegetation to prevent wildfires. And in California, in Zinfandel, sheep grazing under vines to keep weeds down and machinery out. And likewise under solar panels, sheep doing the mowing while generating a bit of income on the side. As it turns out, sheep are the original multi-tool, quiet, efficient, and fully biodegradable. But these examples show huge potential for public goods grazing, where we can deliver social value and environment goals alongside production. So, what does finding the balance actually mean? For me, it's not about choosing between production and conservation. It's about integration. Healthier ecosystems make for healthier farms. In hotter countries, for example, when the soil holds more water, The grass grows longer and the stock thrive. Nature and business both win. Simple. And the same goes for culture, because a landscape without people is just scenery. Unfortunately, in the uplands, the easiest way to farm is the way the government wants us to farm. So we need policies and support schemes that value all three pillars: food, environment, and community. And perhaps the biggest shift is in mindset, away from short-term fixes towards long-term stewardship. The future belongs to farmers who see themselves not as victims of change, but drivers of adaptation. Before I finish, I want to thank the Nuffield Farming Scholarships Trust and my main sponsor, the John Oldacre Foundation, for this amazing experience. And of course, to the farmers around the world who opened their gates, homes, minds, and shared their stories with me. And to my family who let me disappear halfway across the world in the name of sheep. I've also used my travels as a basis for a master's degree at Aberystwyth University, which has added real value to the whole Nuffield experience. So I have to thank my course tutor, Mr. Miriam Roberts, and Mr. Wyn Owen for making it happen. And thanks to them both, I'm firmly on the way to becoming one of the most overqualified shepherds in the world. So the future of upland sheep farming, I'd say, is bright, adaptable, and proudly rooted in the culture that shaped it. Thank you very much.